The unexpected medical crisis. The sterile corridors of the Galactic Medical Research Station Epsilon 9 hummed with an eerie silence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the observation window, her dark eyes scanning the intricate medical bay where three distinct alien species worked in synchronized precision. As the station's lead xenobiological specialist, she had spent years bridging the gap between human and extraterrestrial medical understanding. A sharp alarm shattered the calm. The holographic displays flickered to life, casting an urgent blue light across the room. Commander Zarak, a towering Krylonian with iridescent scaled skin, rushed into the medical bay, cradling the critically injured crew member. "We need immediate intervention." Zarak's voice resonated with a mix of technological translation and raw emotion. Dr. Rodriguez moved swiftly, her years of training kicking into high gear. The injured crew member was a Nexian, a species known for their complex biological structure that resembled a cross between crystalline network and organic tissue. Their physiology was notoriously difficult to treat, even for the most advanced medical systems in the known galaxy. Dr. Lian Cho, the station's chief alien medical specialist, approached with calculated movements. His neural interface glowed softly, connected to the station's advanced diagnostic systems. "The internal molecular disruption is severe," he announced, his voice clinical and detached. "Standard intervention protocols are ineffective." Commander Zarak's translucent membranes around her neck pulsed with anxiety. "Every moment counts. Can you save him?" Dr. Cho's response was immediate and cold. "Our medical algorithms indicate a 0.03% chance of successful intervention. The risk of catastrophic cellular collapse is too high." Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, her mind already racing through potential solutions. She had spent years studying xenobiology, developing techniques that challenged conventional medical wisdom. The Nexian's unique biological structure was a puzzle she had been working to understand for decades. "I need access to the quantum cellular reconstruction database," she demanded, her fingers already dancing across the holographic interface. Dr. Cho looked skeptical. "Impossible. The quantum protocols are designed for specific biological frameworks. The Nexian physiology is too complex, too unpredictable." But Elena was not listening. Her mind was a whirlwind of potential solutions, cross-referencing decades of research, experimental techniques, and her own groundbreaking theories about adaptive medical interventions. Commander Zarak watched with a mix of hope and desperation. The injured Nexian's bioluminescence signals were growing weaker, the complex crystalline structures within their body beginning to destabilize. "We have minutes, not hours," Zarak urged. Dr. Rodriguez turned to the assembled medical team, her voice steady but charged with determination. "Our standard protocols are designed for predictability. But life, whether human, Krylonian, or Nexian, is anything but predictable." She began interfacing with the station's most advanced medical systems, her fingers moving with a precision that seemed to defy the very algorithms designed to limit medical intervention. Dr. Cho tried to intervene. "You're risking complete molecular disintegration. Our ethical guidelines." "Ethical guidelines," Elena interrupted, her eyes blazing with scientific passion. "Our ethical obligation is to save life, not to be constrained by limited understanding." The medical bay became a nexus of tension. Advanced alien technology hummed and pulsed, holographic displays showing the rapidly deteriorating condition of the Nexian crew member. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, a human doctor about to challenge everything the galactic medical community believed was possible. In that moment, the fate of a life hung in the balance, not just the life of a single Nexian, but potentially the future of interspecies medical cooperation. The next few minutes would change everything. Challenging medical protocols. The emergency medical conference was unlike any Elena Rodriguez had experienced before. Holographic representations of medical experts from across the galactic consortium flickered around the circular chamber, their collective skepticism palpable. Dr. Virik, a senior quantum medical analyst from the Centauri Research Council, was the first to challenge Elena's proposed intervention. His crystalline form shifted with each word, projecting an aura of academic superiority. "Dr. Rodriguez," he began, his translated voice carrying a patronizing tone, "your proposed quantum cellular reconstruction technique is theoretical at best. The Nexian biological matrix is fundamentally incompatible with human-derived medical technologies." Elena stood her ground, a holographic display behind her showing complex molecular diagrams and intricate biological simulations. Her research was more than just a hypothesis. It was the result of decades of dedicated study, of pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible. "Incompatibility is just another word for lack of understanding," she countered. "Every medical breakthrough in history began with someone challenging the established norms." Commander Zarak stood beside her, an unexpected ally. The Krylonian support was crucial. Their species was known for its pragmatic approach to scientific innovation, valuing results over rigid theoretical constraints. "The patient's condition continues to deteriorate," Zarak interjected. "Our standard protocols have failed. Dr. Rodriguez's approach represents our only remaining option." Dr. Lian Cho, who had been silent during most of the proceedings, finally spoke. His neural interface pulsed with complex data streams, indicating deep computational analysis. "The risk parameters are extreme," he said, his voice a careful blend of scientific caution and emerging curiosity. "A 0.03% success rate is statistically negligible. But," he paused, a rare moment of uncertainty crossing his usually stoic features, "the alternative is certain death." Elena knew this was more than just a medical intervention. It was a battle against institutional thinking, against the deeply ingrained belief that certain biological barriers were insurmountable. Her mind drifted to her early days of research. She remembered the countless nights spent in her laboratory on Earth, studying xenobiological samples, developing theories that her colleagues had dismissed as impossible. Her work had always been about seeing beyond the immediate, understanding the potential for adaptation and transformation. The Nexian patient, whose name she now knew was Krelax, represented more than just a medical challenge. It was a test of human potential, of the ability to bridge seemingly impossible gaps. "I'll need complete access to the station's quantum resonance chamber," Elena announced, "and unrestricted use of the molecular reconstruction algorithms." Dr. Varick's crystalline form flickered with indignation. "Absolutely not. The risks. The risks of doing nothing are absolute," Elena interrupted. "Death is the only certainty if we don't act." The chamber fell silent. Holographic representatives from dozens of species exchanged glances, their body languages, diverse and alien as they were, all conveying a similar mix of skepticism and grudging respect. Commander Zarak stepped forward, her decision already made. "We will support Dr. Rodriguez's intervention. Prepare the quantum resonance chamber." As the conference dissolved, Elena caught Dr. Cho watching her. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes beyond clinical detachment, a spark of genuine scientific curiosity. The next phase of her unprecedented medical intervention was about to begin. The fate of Krelax, and potentially the future of interspecies medical treatment, hung in the balance. Science was about to be redefined. Breakthrough and resistance. The quantum resonance chamber was a marvel of technological engineering, a spherical room that seemed to exist between different dimensional planes. Translucent energy fields shimmered around Krelax's stabilized body, each pulse a delicate dance of molecular reconstruction. Elena Rodriguez worked with a precision that bordered on intuition. Her hands moved across holographic interfaces, manipulating quantum algorithms that most scientists would have considered impossible. Behind her, a team of skeptical alien medical specialists watched, their collective breath held in a mixture of anticipation and disbelief. "The cellular degradation is accelerating," Dr. Lian Cho announced, his neural interface projecting complex molecular maps. We're losing structural integrity in the Nexion's primary neural network. Elena didn't respond immediately. Her mind was elsewhere, tracing potential molecular pathways that defied conventional medical understanding. She had discovered something extraordinary during her initial scans, a quantum entanglement within Krelax's cellular structure that suggested a completely different approach to healing. Traditional medical interventions assume repair, she muttered, more to herself than to her colleagues. But what if healing is about communication, not reconstruction? Commander Zorak approached the observation platform, her scaled skin shifting with concern. Doctor, our time is limited. What exactly are you attempting? Elena turned, her eyes burning with a combination of scientific passion and desperate hope. We've been looking at the Nexian biological structure as a mechanical system, but it's not. It's a living, communicative network. She activated a series of quantum resonance frequencies, each pulse carefully calibrated to interact with the Nexian's unique molecular signature. The chamber filled with a soft, almost musical humming, a sound that seemed to exist between sound and pure energy. Dr. Virik, who had been monitoring the procedure remotely, erupted in electronic protest. This is madness. You're introducing quantum instabilities that could completely destroy the patient's remaining cellular structure. But Elena was beyond traditional warnings. Her research had uncovered something remarkable, a potential method of intermolecular communication that could revolutionize medical treatment across species. The Krelonian medical team exchanged worried glances. Dr. Cho's neural interface began to flicker, overwhelmed by the complexity of Elena's approach. The molecular patterns are changing, he said, his voice a mixture of scientific wonder and growing excitement. Krelax's body began to respond in ways no one had predicted. The deteriorating cellular structures started to stabilize, not through traditional repair mechanisms, but through a complex quantum resonance that seemed to communicate with the molecular structure itself. It's like teaching the molecules to speak to each other, Elena explained, her hands moving with increasing confidence. Not forcing repair, but facilitating communication. Commander Zorak leaned closer to the observation window. Is it working? Before anyone could respond, alarms began to sound. The quantum resonance chamber erupted in a burst of energy that momentarily blinded everyone present. When the light faded, something extraordinary had occurred. Krelax's body was changing. The crystalline structures that had been deteriorating now pulsed with a vibrant, almost living energy. It was neither complete healing nor total destruction. It was something entirely new. Dr. Virik's holographic representation began to protest, but Elena was no longer listening. She had just achieved something that would challenge everything known about interspecies medical treatment. The medical community would never be the same. The next phase of her unprecedented medical intervention was about to begin, and the consequences would be far beyond anything anyone could have imagined. The unintended consequences. The quantum resonance chamber stood silent, its intricate energy fields now dormant after Elena Rodriguez's unprecedented medical intervention. But silence, in the world of scientific discovery, was rarely a sign of resolution. Dr. Marcus Reyes, the station's chief of cynobiological ethics, stood before a holographic projection of Krelax's molecular structure. What he saw both fascinated and terrified him. The patient's cellular composition had transformed beyond any predictable medical outcome, creating a biological anomaly that challenged everything known about interspecies medical treatment. This is more than a medical breakthrough, Marcus muttered, his fingers tracing the complex molecular patterns. This is a fundamental restructuring of biological potential. Krelax was no longer simply a patient. He had become a living experiment, a bridge between biological understanding and quantum possibility. The crystalline structures that now integrated with his organic matter pulsed with an energy that seemed to defy the very laws of biological existence. Commander Elena Rodriguez watched from a nearby observation platform, her eyes reflecting a mixture of scientific triumph and growing uncertainty. She understood better than anyone the magnitude of what had occurred. Her quantum resonance technique had not just treated a patient, It had rewritten the very language of biological communication. The molecular adaptive response is unprecedented, Dr. Lian Cho announced, his neural interface working overtime to process the continuous stream of data. We're seeing a level of cellular communication that suggests an entirely new paradigm of biological understanding. But not everyone saw it as a breakthrough. The Galactic Medical Consortium had begun a series of intense investigations. What Elena had accomplished threatened established medical protocols that had been developed over centuries of interspecies medical research. If her technique could be replicated, it would fundamentally reshape medical treatment across countless civilizations. We cannot simply allow this to continue without comprehensive understanding, argued Dr. Varick, his crystalline holographic form flickering with agitation. The potential for unintended consequences is astronomical. Those consequences were already beginning to manifest. Krulax demonstrated abilities that went far beyond medical recovery. His molecular structure could now adapt to environmental changes with remarkable speed. Medical scanners showed he could regenerate damaged cellular structures almost instantaneously, and his neural network seemed to communicate with medical technology in ways that bordered on sentience. Elena understood the deeper implications. This was more than a medical technique. It was a new way of understanding life itself, not as a static system to be repaired, but as a dynamic conversation to be understood. We're standing at the threshold of a new understanding, she told Marcus, her voice steady, but filled with an underlying current of excitement and trepidation. Every biological system has a language. We've just learned how to listen. But listening, they would soon discover, was just the beginning. The quantum resonance technique had opened a door that could never be closed, and what waited on the other side was beyond anyone's imagination. The molecular revolt. The research containment facility hummed with an energy that was neither mechanical nor organic. At its center, Krulax existed in a state that defied conventional understanding, a living testament to the quantum leap in medical science that Dr. Elena Rodriguez had unleashed. Dr. Marcus Rice watched through reinforced quantum adaptive glass, his hands trembling slightly as he recorded his observations. The patient, if one could still call Krulax a patient, was undergoing changes that challenged the very foundation of biological research. The molecular adaptive response is accelerating, Dr. Lian Cho announced, his neural interface projecting holographic representations of Krulax's transforming cellular structure. We're witnessing something beyond regeneration. It's more like molecular evolution in real time. What had begun as a desperate medical intervention was now revealing itself as something far more profound. Krulax's body was no longer simply healing. It was actively rewriting its own biological code, creating new pathways of cellular communication that seemed to emerge from a form of intelligence entirely alien to human comprehension. Commander Zarak, who had been monitoring the situation, approached with a deliberate caution. Her scaled skin shifted in patterns that suggested deep concern. "This is beyond medical intervention," she said, her translator rendering her words with a mix of wonder and trepidation. "We're observing a fundamental restructuring of biological potential." Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the observation deck, her years of research coalescing into this singular moment of revelation. She had always believed that biological systems were more than mechanical structures, that they were complex communication networks waiting to be understood. But this was beyond her wildest predictions. Krulax's molecular structure began to generate its own quantum field. Medical instruments designed to monitor biological processes started to malfunction, unable to categorize or comprehend the transformation occurring before their sensors. The quantum resonance technique, Elena explained to the assembled researchers, was never just about healing. It was about creating a dialogue with the fundamental language of life itself. Dr. Varick, connecting remotely through a high-resolution holographic interface, could barely contain his scientific excitement and terror. "We're witnessing the emergence of a new form of biological existence," he muttered, his crystalline form flickering with intense computational activity. The implications were staggering. If Krellak's transformation could be understood, replicated, or even partially controlled, it would revolutionize not just medical treatment, but the very understanding of life, adaptation, and biological potential. But with revolution came uncertainty. Each moment of observation revealed new complexities. Krellak was no longer simply responding to medical intervention. He was actively engaging with it, reshaping his own molecular structure in ways that suggested a level of agency previously thought impossible. "We're no longer treating a patient," Dr. Lian Cho said, his voice a mixture of scientific wonder and growing apprehension. "We're in communication with a new form of biological intelligence." Elena understood the deeper truth. This was more than a medical breakthrough. It was the first step toward understanding life as a dynamic, communicative system, a conversation that extended far beyond the limitations of individual species or traditional scientific understanding. As the observation deck fell silent, Krellak continued his transformation, and with each passing moment, the boundaries between healing, communication, and evolution blurred into something entirely new. The molecular revolt had begun, and no one, not a single species in the known galaxy, was prepared for what would come next. The convergence. The quantum resonance archive stood as a testament to humanity's most extraordinary scientific achievement. Located on the fringes of known space, it was more than a research facility. It was a beacon of interspecies understanding that had emerged from Dr. Elena Rodriguez's groundbreaking medical intervention. 10 years had passed since the day Krellak was transformed. Dr. Marcus Reyes walked through the archive's central chamber, where holographic displays chronicled the journey that had changed everything. Krellak was no longer just a patient or a research subject. He had become a bridge between species, a living embodiment of a new understanding of life itself. "The convergence is approaching," a soft voice announced. Elena Rodriguez, now lead director of the Xenobiological Research Initiative, stood nearby. Age had touched her, but her eyes burned with the same intense curiosity that had driven her revolutionary medical technique. Beside her, Krellak existed in a form that defied traditional description, part organic, part quantum phenomenon, entirely unique. Representatives from 214 different galactic civilizations had gathered. This was more than a scientific conference. It was a moment of collective transformation. Krellak began to communicate, not through traditional language, but through a complex molecular narrative that translated directly into understanding. The assembled researchers experienced his journey, the moment of near death, the quantum intervention, the subsequent transformation, as a living, breathing experience. "We misunderstood life," Elena explained to the gathered representatives. "We saw it as something to be fixed, controlled, categorized. But life is a conversation, a dynamic, evolving dialogue that extends beyond individual beings, beyond species." Dr. Lian Cho, now a respected xenobiological philosopher, stepped forward. His neural interface projected complex molecular diagrams that danced in the air, visual representations of the quantum communication technique that had started it all. "The quantum resonance method was never just a medical intervention," he announced. "It was a translation device, a way to understand the fundamental language of existence itself." The implications were profound. Diseases that had decimated entire civilizations could now be approached as complex communication systems. Genetic limitations became opportunities for dialogue. The very concept of healing had been reimagined. Commander Zorak, representing the Krellonian Diplomatic Corps, spoke next. "We stand at the threshold of a new understanding," she said, her scaled skin displaying intricate patterns of cooperation and hope. No longer divided by biological differences, but united by the ability to communicate. Krellak moved forward, if movement was the right word. His form shifted, molecular structures rearranging in real time, a living demonstration of the potential that had been unlocked. Dr. Virik, once Elena's most ardent critic, now stood as a testament to the power of scientific transformation. "We were blind," he admitted, his crystalline form pulsing with emotion. believing that differences were barriers when they were actually opportunities for understanding. As the conference reached its climax, something extraordinary happened. The molecular communication technique that Elena had developed began to resonate across the entire archive. For a brief moment, every being present, organic, synthetic, quantum, shared a unified understanding. It was more than a scientific breakthrough. It was the moment humanity, and every other species, realized that life was not about survival. It was about communication, about understanding, about connection.